Hello, Archie Dunlop here with Talking Astrology with Archie. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about the astrology and the I Ching for the weekend of January the 27th and 28th, 2024. And my topic for this video is going to be the execution of Kenneth Smith in Alabama. He was executed on Thursday, January the 25th, and what was exceptional about his execution was that a new method was used, which was nitrogen. That means giving someone nitrogen to breathe. It's not that the nitrogen poisons them, or poisoned him. It's the fact that there's no oxygen in the mixture. I think it's just nitrogen. And as a result, the person inevitably dies. By all accounts, the execution was not pleasant. It was not a quick death. I believe that Kenneth Smith was sort of gasping for air and flailing around for a few minutes. So as far as I could see, if you imagine someone wearing this mask, breathing in pure oxygen, fighting for their life, that would be categorized as cruel and unusual. It is strange, isn't it? I mean, aside from the argument about whether or not you should have the death penalty, the way the Americans kind of insist on, at least the United States, when I say Americans, insist on, and indeed those American states that choose to have the death penalty, they insist on just having it as a huge performance. It's not enough just to give someone an anesthetic, like a dog gets euthanized at a vet's office. No, they have to go through this whole performance, and they can never quite do it in a way that's quick and painless. They have to have this extra little bit to make it unpleasant and to cause a bit of suffering. Plus the fact that you've got this time lag. I mean, I think that Kenneth Smith was 22 when he committed the murder, and he's now 58. That's a huge length of time. That raises the question, are you executing the same person as committed the crime? I mean, people do change. Of course, people don't change sometimes, very often, but nonetheless, there should be some degree of sort of speed there. I understand you've got to go through appeals and all that kind of stuff, and you don't want don't want to kill the wrong person. But I was looking back at the last woman executed in England, in the United Kingdom. The last woman, she was Ruth Ellis, and she committed her crime the 10th of April 1955. She killed her boyfriend or her ex-boyfriend. It was a very controversial case. He had treated her appallingly. She shot him on the 10th of April 1955. She was convicted, I think, on the 20th of June 1955. And there were some appeals and whatever, but she was executed on the 13th of July 1955. So she was dead within just over 3 months of committing the crime. She shouldn't have been executed. I think, of course, there are big arguments against the death penalty. But here is Kenneth Smith, who was executed. Oh God, that would be 30. Something like 36 years, 36 years afterwards. from 22. Yeah, that's amazing. He does his crime at 22, and then he gets executed at 58. So yeah, that's what I want to talk about. That's my main theme, and I'm not just going to talk about him. The fact is, it is a new method of execution. There have been other methods of moments where you had new methods of execution in the United States, which I think I'll try to look at. In 1890, there was the first time that someone went to the electric chair. There was 1924, the first time that the United States, I think in Nevada, executed someone with cyanide gas. I'll try to be looking at all of that if I've got time. But before I do that, I want to look at the astrology and the I Ching for this weekend, the weekend of January the 27th and 28th, 2024. So top right, that is Kenneth Smith, who was executed last Thursday. So let's see what's going on. Let's see what's going on this weekend. So here is a chart for the beginning of Sunday. So this is a chart for the halfway point in the weekend. Now, possibly the most important thing going on this weekend is the fact that Uranus is stationing. It's going stationary direct. So you can see there is Uranus. It's at 19:05 Taurus, and you can see that there's no R next to it. There's no, when on this form, this chart wheel, when a planet is retrograde, there's a little R like there. There you see North Node. The North Node is always retrograde, well, nearly always retrograde. The true North Node does actually go forward at times, but its general movement is backwards. Uranus does not have that little R. So Uranus is now going forward, but right now it is kind of at a standstill from the Earth's perspective. And so the planet Uranus may be very strongly configured at the moment. And the planet Uranus is about sudden events, earthquakes, instability, revolution, that kind of thing. Things might not go right. We might have to do things in a different way. People may be quite sort of hasty. So those are kind of things one might expect with Uranus going stationary direct. In general, I think Uranus going stationary direct is more likely to have an impact on the world around us rather than our own personal lives. Uranus is a sort of outer planet, transpersonal planet, generational planet. So it's more about the collective rather than the individual. As far as Saturday is concerned, for much of Saturday, the moon is moving through Leo. It's very late Leo. But we do have a sign change on Saturday, although it does kind of depend where you are. So if you're in London, the sign change takes place on Saturday evening at 7:11 p.m. So Saturday evening, 7:11 p.m., the sun will suddenly switch from Leo to Virgo. If you're in New York, it will happen earlier. It will happen at 2:11 in the afternoon on Saturday. If you're in Los Angeles, it will happen at 11:11, 11 minutes past 11. That's easy to remember. If you're in Paris, Berlin, Rome, the moon will go into Virgo at 8:11 p.m. If you're in Asia, if you're in Turkey, then it'll still be in Saturday. It'll still be, if you're in Turkey in the Middle East, then it'll go into it'll go into or Israel. Then the moon will go into a Virgo sort of late on Saturday evening. If you're in East Asia, India, Australia, New Zealand, then the sign change won't actually take place until till tomorrow. Off the top of my head, I believe if you're in Sydney, Australia, the sign change would take place, I think, at 8:11 on Sunday morning. So by Sunday, by Sunday morning, the moon is going to be in Virgo for all of us. But it does depend where you are when that sign change takes place. So what does it mean when the moon goes into Virgo? I think things become more serious. You move from Leo, which Leo is a fire sign. It's all about ourselves. While the moon is in Leo, many of us are going to be looking for appreciation, admiration, flattery might be a feature of the moon being in Leo. Then you move to Virgo, where you've got to start focusing on the details. It's an earth sign, Virgo is. And it's not just that, it's the fact that the moment the moon goes into Virgo, it starts making an opposition aspect to Saturn. And so that moon opposition Saturn may start to make things more serious. We might have to live up to our responsibilities. We can't get away with things like we were able to get away perhaps with them while the moon was in Leo. Also on Saturday, we have the exact conjunction between Mercury and Mars. Now, I've been talking about this conjunction between Mercury and Mars for the last few days. And I think this conjunction really has an impact over the whole weekend. I'm not going to just say, it's going to be more of an impact on Saturday than Sunday. Not really. You've got this conjunction between Mercury and Mars. This conjunction between Mercury and Mars is, as I've said over the last few days, it can be quite verbal. Mercury is about how we communicate. It's what we say. Mars is about anger, angry words. There are things that make us angry, and we want to tell people about them. Not in all cases, perhaps even not in most cases. But it might be us being angry. It might be other people. We might see that people are on edge. They've got things they want to talk about in a very animated, assertive, even aggressive kind of way. And because Mercury and Mars are in Capricorn, maybe there's a lot to say about material stuff, the details of money and career and that kind of thing. So that's the Mercury Mars conjunction. Overall, I'd probably say that Sunday is a slightly more stable day than Saturday. I mean, the moon will be in Virgo. Venus is going to be sextile Saturn. So Venus is at 5 Capricorn. Saturn is at, it's around 6 Capricorn to 6 Pisces sextile. So Venus sextile Saturn is, it's quite a useful aspect. It's quite a stabilizing aspect. It might be a good way of stabilizing relationships, provided you can get around the Mercury-Mars conjunction. Bringing some order into your various relationships, getting people to take you seriously. Or perhaps we have to take someone else seriously. It always works both ways. And sort of Venus is a planet of money. So if Venus is a planet of money and Venus is sextile Saturn, it might be a good time, especially as we've got all this stuff in Capricorn, to look at our finances and work out how best to sort them out, stabilize things if something has recently got out of control. Now, there are some other aspects which are perhaps a little more obscure. So I've said that there's a Mercury-Mars conjunction. Now, this Mercury-Mars conjunction, you can see it here. Mercury-Mars conjunction. It's actually square the nodal axis. It's square the nodes. The nodes are about contacts with other people. They can also be about karma and the past and whatever. So if you've got Mercury and Mars square the nodal axis, that can emphasize the point that that communications could be quite disruptive. Mercury Mars is hitting the nodal axis. What we say has a big impact on our network of friends, not just friends, acquaintances, everyone. So we do need to be careful what we say. I really must emphasize that. And if you're interested in hypothetical planets, there is a hypothetical planet called Admetos, which is about delay and things just not moving, getting a bit stuck. The Admetos was a king in Greek mythology. He didn't want to die, so someone died in his place, and that was so he was kind of delaying the inevitable. And so with this Admetos connected with the nodal axis, the things we say could cause delay. Maybe we're getting angry because things aren't happening fast enough. That's Admetos hitting the nodal axis with, well, it's not the fact that it's exactly on the nodal axis. I'm not quite sure what the exact orb is there, but it's the fact that Mercury and Mars are running into it. There is another midpoint aspect, which is it's been happening over the last few days, and we've got Uranus conjunct Neptune Hades. I think we already know how that's going to work out, don't we? Neptune Hades. Neptune is the planet of gas, and it's conjunct Hades. Hades is the planet of death. That's one way of looking at it. So Neptune Hades could be seen as being death by gas. And so we've had Uranus conjunct the Neptune Hades midpoint. So the sudden surprising thing in Alabama, someone dying in this, to be honest, in this cruel and unusual way, in my opinion. I mean, one can have arguments, okay, maybe he perhaps deserved to die because of what he did. Kenneth Smith deserved to die because of what he did in 1988. But I'm not arguing about the pros and cons of a death penalty in this video. But we've got that. We have actually also had Neptune on the Mars-Saturn midpoint. So Mars, but that's kind of it's passing away. We haven't got it now. We did have it earlier in the week, and so Neptune on the Mars-Saturn midpoint. Mars-Saturn midpoint. It's the death axis, the death pair, Mars and Saturn. Neptune on hitting the Mars-Saturn midpoint. Well, death by gas. That's very easy. But I'll be talking about that later in the video when I discuss Kenneth Smith. So, in fact, it's quite a busy weekend. I think we do have to be careful about just getting overly angry on a verbal level. I think that Mercury-Mars conjunction could get out of hand, particularly when we've got Uranus going stationary direct. Okay, so that's the overall planetary picture. And so what I want to do now is look at what's going on for the 12 signs over the weekend. So these are my forecasts for the 12 signs for the weekend of January the 27th and 28th, 2024. Aries. It's a weekend where I think you do have to be a bit careful. You have been, I think, in many respects, getting more agitated over the last few days. This is because Mercury has been moving towards a conjunction with Mars, which is your ruling planet. Mercury is a communication planet, and so Aries, I think you've been really quite keen to communicate. There have been lots of things you've wanted to say, and it's at times being a little frustrating because you haven't always had a chance to tell the world what you really think. But I think now, this weekend, with the Mercury-Mars conjunction, which has been building up, becoming exact, I think now really is the time to express yourself. But you have to do it in a smooth way. Don't just suddenly blurt out what you think. Just gently, if you can, tell people what's on your mind. I think that's very important. Don't be overly dramatic, because if you are overly dramatic in a verbal sense, then you could end up causing a lot of trouble. So what is actually going to be bothering you? Some Arians are going to actually be quite concerned about what's going on at work. So if you're working over the weekend, this is going to be an area where you're going to be putting a lot of energy into it. And I think quite constructive energy, because this Mercury-Mars conjunction, it is in Capricorn. It's not as crazy as when it's in other signs. Mercury-Mars conjunction in Sagittarius, or for example, or Leo would be more crazy, would be more sort of over the top, or indeed a Mercury-Mars conjunction in Aries. No, this Mercury-Mars conjunction is in Capricorn, and there is going to be a sort of a reason to communicate in the way you want to communicate, and think about what you need, and even if you're not working over the weekend, I think that's going to be an area where you're going to put a lot of energy into it. Mercury-Mars conjunction is not necessarily, though, just about talking. It can be about thinking and planning. And indeed, it may be more constructive, Aries, rather than to just tell everyone what you think, to just sit down. In the old days, I'd say sit down with a pen and paper. But sit down with your laptop or whatever you write with, and just do some planning. It can be frantic planning. Mercury conjunct Mars, really thinking about things. Your thoughts, let your thoughts really go into overdrive, and you might come up with some very useful stuff. Nonetheless, the North Node, which is supposed to be your way forward, is in your star sign, and I think in many cases through communication and thinking, you can start to take the initiative, because this is a time when Aries should be taking the initiative. And I know that Aries, if you think about what it means to be an Aries, we always say taking the initiative, it's me, what I have to do. But it's particularly the case now with the North Node in your star sign. Okay, I understand it goes through your star sign for a long time, for a period of a few years, but still it is emphasized by that Mercury-Mars conjunction. And what you should not do, Aries, is to do things other people's way. Not with this Mercury-Mars conjunction. Sure, you have to understand other people, you have to accept other people, that they do have an influence, but you don't really want to do it their way, because I think that's not going to work, and you won't really be following your, if you like, following your destiny. Saturday is, for you, Aries, is possibly a slightly different day from Sunday. I mean, over the last couple of days, the moon has been moving through Leo. Depending on where you are, there is a sign change. on Saturday. Okay, if you're in Asia, Australia, New Zealand, or at least East Asia, Australia, New Zealand, if you're in the Philippines, for example, then the sign change won't take place until tomorrow. Sorry, until Sunday. Um, but yeah, with Leo, you have with the moon in Leo, you're still trying to have fun. You're still trying to enjoy yourself and be playfully creative. But I think it could be hard work. And by Sunday, Aries, you really are hitting, becoming down to earth, and you really want to, or you should be doing stuff which relates to organizing your environment, detailed work. And I think you're helped by the fact that you've got this this Mercury-Mars conjunction in Capricorn, because this Mercury-Mars conjunction is not just a problem, it's actually something you can use in a constructive way. Remember, Mars, your ruler, is in Capricorn, it is exalted. And you could say, well, it's helped by the fact that Mercury is moving into Mars. Mercury is moving to the conjunction of Mars. It means that you can express yourself. Now, looking at relationships, whatever you're doing with relationships, it really does have to be on your terms. I know that, as I've just said, you've had the North Node moving through your star sign for some time, but that North Node in your star sign is emphasized by the fact that the Mercury-Mars conjunction is aspecting the North Node. Relationships are on your terms, or arguably they shouldn't be. They're not at all. Don't bother with them. So if you're involved in a relationship where it's you having to do what your partner wants right now, and you're having to accommodate other people, that's not a relationship that's going to make you happy. And it's an un-Aries relationship, and that's possibly a relationship you should either change or get out of. But provided you're in control, I think relationships can work really well. Just make sure that you communicate in the right way. As far as as far as your partner is concerned, or I think you should be able to get on. Obviously, don't say anything completely out of order. And in fact, Aries, as the weekend progresses, you have an opportunity to really move things on with relationships. This is because there is actually a trine between Venus and Jupiter. Now, depending on where you are, this trine between Venus and Jupiter is not exact until after the weekend on Monday. In fact, if you're in the Americas, it's actually exact on Sunday evening. And Venus is your relationship ruler. It's trine Jupiter. So with Venus trine Jupiter, partners may actually have a lot to offer, and so listen to what they've got to say. That's not the same as doing what they want to say. Doing what they say, and perhaps you should, as the weekend progresses, as you move into Sunday, you should perhaps give partners more time and give them a chance to show you who they are, and listen to them, because they might have have a view of the world which is actually quite sort of optimistic, and though they might also be concerned about quite mundane things, not just their day-to-day life, but the economy, society. That's because Venus, which is the Venus, which in the Aries chart is is your relationship ruler, because it rules Libra, your opposite sign, is actually squaring the Jupiter-Saturn midpoint. And so with Venus squaring the Jupiter-Saturn midpoint, that suggests that some of the people close to you are quite concerned about the economy, where it's all heading, what's going on in the news. So, listen to what they've got to say, and, maybe you need to address their concerns. Taurus. I think it's actually going to be quite a useful weekend. There are some aspects involving Venus, your ruling planet. Venus is sextile Saturn over the weekend. So you have the opportunity to, stabilize things. If something in your life has been getting a bit out of control, then now might be the time to get some order back. So that might be something you can do. And Venus sextile Saturn is very benign. It's a sextile aspect. So if things have recently got out of hand, you can bring them back under control. Though I should point out that on Saturday the Sun makes a square aspect to Jupiter. So Jupiter has been moving through your star sign for some time, and the Sun is making a square to Jupiter. This aspect could make you a little bit frantic, particularly on Saturday. You may feel that something has to be done. Just anything, it's got to be done. Maybe relating to work, something you didn't do last week, and you think you didn't do it last week. What are you going to do? It's Saturday, it's a weekend, everyone's gone home. What are you going to do? So on Saturday, you may feel that there are definitely things that you need to do, and it may bother you a bit. But perhaps, Taurus, you should relax. You may think you haven't finished something, but it's quite possible that actually you have finished it. So as you move through Saturday, I think most Taurians, particularly if they're not in the Americas, are going to be still concerned about what's going on in their home, family, the domestic situation. And in fact, you're going to be more comfortable when you're at home. Particularly if you're in Europe, Asia, Australia, New Zealand. It's just the outside world is going to feel a little too much, and you maybe in fact, I talked about finishing things off. Maybe you're going to want to be at home because there are things to finish off at home. Just chores, that kind of thing. That's what you want to be focusing on. But the moon is moving into Virgo, and so moon in Virgo has a reputation for being sort of very boring and detailed, all about details and hard work. That's a stereotypical view of Virgo. I'm not saying it's correct. But as the moon moves into Virgo, and certainly as you move into Sunday, Taurus, you may actually find that things get a little more exciting, and you're going to benefit from a grand trine in earth signs. So let me explain what that means if you don't know. This weekend, Venus is moving towards a trine of 122 and 120 degree aspect of Jupiter. Remember, Venus is your ruling planet, rules Taurus. It's moving towards Jupiter, which is moving through your star sign. That is fortunate. In fact, I think that Sunday is going to be a very fortunate day if you do the right things. And then the moon is moving. As it moves into Virgo, it moves towards a trine with Venus and a trine with Jupiter. So you've got moon in Virgo on Sunday, trine Venus in Capricorn, trine Jupiter in Taurus, hence the grand trine. and it's in Earth signs. So in fact, Taurus, Sunday, if you do what needs to be done and you get it right, actually Sunday could be a great day. When things could really move for you. But it's just important that you focus on the right things. You've got to try to keep it earthy on Sunday. So, what does earthy mean? Well, I mean, it depends on your situation, doesn't it? If you're a gardener and the weather's okay, it depends where you are. Maybe some good stuff you can do in the garden. If you're involved in if you're business minded and you've got work to do, or you've got business to sort out, then things can really start moving. So if you have a business meeting on Sunday, I know people don't normally have business meetings on Sunday, but if you do, I think you can cover a lot of ground. Even if you're not meeting anyone and you're doing work on your own, I think if you work hard, things can actually move quicker than expected. So that's another way that this grand trine in Earth signs can work. Or you can just have a walk, again, weather permitting. If there's a gale and you get hit by a tree and you go for a walk just because I told you to go for a walk, so bear that in mind. I'm not going to be responsible for you getting killed by a tree branch. So weather permitting and being close to nature in general might be good for you. As far as relationships are concerned, Venus is trine Jupiter. That may be good because Venus it's not just your ruling planet; it's a planet of relationships. It's trine Jupiter. It's in Earth signs, so. From a romantic point of view, there is a certain sort of sensuality about that grand trine. So that is something to consider. Though I should say, in terms of relationships, you should not forget that there is a conjunction between Mercury and Mars. Mars is your relationship ruler. That's because Mars rules Aries, your opposite sign. And so with Mercury conjunct Mars, you may find that partners have a lot to say, a lot to talk about. You may not be in the mood for talking. You may not be in the mood for listening. But maybe you should make the effort. If you ignore someone who really needs to talk, then it's not going away. The words have to be dealt with, and you have to listen to what they're going to say, because actually they may be making a lot of sense. Finally, I should point out that Venus, your ruling planet, is square the Jupiter-Saturn midpoint. I've mentioned the fact that there's a lot of emphasis on Earth because there's this grand trine in Earth on Sunday. Earth is also about what is going on in the world around you in an economic sense. When I was talking about Aries, I was talking about the business cycle, and I say the same thing. I think you're going to be concerned about the business cycle. You could be if you're in business. It's a good time to be thinking about how the business cycle could be affecting you. And so if you're doing anything of a mundane level, on a sort of a career business level, and you're making arrangements, plans, do think about that. It's not just about what's going on in your life, it's what's going on in the whole global economy. So bear that in mind. Gemini. Well, from a Gemini perspective, probably the main thing going on today is a conjunction between Mercury, your ruling planet, and Mars. And so, Gemini, I think you're going to be quite energized. Your mind is going to be energetic. You'll be thinking a lot. Your brain will be zooming around, trying to work out what to do. And there may actually be a certain sense of agitation. You want to do something. There are things that need to be done, and you may just feel you can't do them for one reason or another. Um, you know, for example, on Sunday, you may feel that you're stuck at home. You're all in one place, and at one place you've got to deal with people like family and whatever. But there are things to do, and it's difficult to tell people how you really feel. This Mercury-Mars conjunction is going to affect you because you've got Mars conjunct Mercury, your ruler, but it's a conjunction that's in Capricorn, and from a Gemini perspective, the sign Capricorn is quite inward-looking. It's about your private world, and so you have these thoughts, but you're just wondering how you can express them. And if you can't express the way you're feeling, if you can't express this agitation, yeah, you could start getting nervous. So Gemini, I think you have to consider how best, how you can best explain to the world, and indeed in some ways to yourself, what needs to be done. So a lot of it is about dealing with this agitation, and this Mercury-Mars conjunction, it makes this square to the nodal axis, to the North Node and the South Node, and the North Node is in Aries, South Node in Libra. I think that that North Node in Aries, for you, for Gemini, it's you're going to be thinking about perhaps your friends. You might also be thinking about what you should be doing, what your hopes for the future are. You do kind of get a feel for the future this weekend, but you're a bit agitated about it because you're feeling, how are you going to get to the future? Because it's so difficult to get things out into the open. But I think you are given an opportunity to unlock the box. It's like a box you are trying to unlock, and I think the way to unlock the box, to open the padlock, and to give yourself freedom, is to find the right way of using your brain, and I think although you want something to happen, you perhaps have to realize that the action is going to be taking place on quite a sort of a private level. You need to be able to get to the bottom of it, and I think maybe that's the issue. Geminis can have a certain tendency to, they want to skim the surface. They know the details deep down matter, but sometimes they can't be bothered to go deep down, or it's just too much work, too much aggravation, so they skim on the surface. But perhaps what you need to do with this Mercury-Mars conjunction in Capricorn is to really go deep down, decide, okay, you're going to find something out. Now, finding something out might involve talking to people. You haven't wanted to ask someone something. Perhaps you wanted to ask them not just one thing, but 20 things. But maybe now's the time to do it. Really get to the bottom of it. Maybe getting knowledge from someone else is going to be the way to deal with the issue. Or maybe you just have to, I don't know, go on the internet, go onto Google and just do some searching. Really search. And go deep down, or go into your private records, go deep down. That's probably the best way of using this Mercury-Mars conjunction. It may not be about talking to people, if it's something you have to work out through going through records, or it may be you've got to find one particular person and just ask them lots of questions. It might have something to do with, I don't know, it could be something to do with your family history, just something you need to know about. And I think that's going to be quite important over the weekend. And on Sunday, Mercury is not just conjunct Mars, but Mercury is trine Uranus. Uranus is the planet of surprises, sudden events, and Uranus is going stationary direct, so it's actually quite in a strong place. So if you put yourself in the right position with Mercury trine Uranus, there may actually be a eureka moment, and suddenly things make sense. So yeah, do consider that. In terms of relationships, it may not be a bad weekend, provided provided you're careful what you say. Mercury conjunct Mars can be a little too hasty, a little too verbal, a little too aggressive. Be careful what you say. But as you move through the weekend, I think there are ways in which you can really create a very good rapport with one other person. I think part of the reason for that is that I know that Gemini sometimes has a reputation for being insensitive, just looking at things on the surface, not really understanding people's deeper feelings. But I think at the moment, Geminis actually are more sensitive than usual. And if you really allow yourself to be sensitive and you understand people's sort of limitations and boundaries, I think you can actually develop a very powerful rapport with someone, but in quite an sort of understated kind of way. We're not necessarily looking at anything dramatic, but just getting closer to someone and getting them to trust you. And I think you can create bonds of trust over the weekend. Just don't rush in. Don't be impulsive. So if you go about things in the right way, you can actually ground someone and make someone feel that you're actually quite trustworthy. So in that respect, you're not being a typical Gemini at all this weekend. You can just get into another side of your personality, and through this other side of your personality, relationships can be put on quite a good footing. Cancer. So when I look at the astrology of Cancer, in fact, when anyone looks at the astrology of Cancer as a star sign, they do focus on the moon, and then the moon is so different from the other planets because it moves so much faster. The sun moves around 30 degrees in a month. The sun moves 30 degrees in a month, yet the moon moves 360 degrees. I mean, the moon moves 12 times faster than the sun. And it's just moving all the time. So what you have to do, when you're doing the astrology for Cancer, is you do have to look at what the moon is doing. It is important, and so looking at the sort of the lunar cycles. So for much of Saturday, the moon is in Virgo. And, while the moon is in Virgo, sorry, I got that wrong. For much of Saturday, the moon is in Leo. And Leo, from a Cancerian perspective, is not a particularly wild place for the moon to be in. It is focused on certain sort of financial realities, perhaps. Also, there's a full moon feeling about the moon in Leo. The full moon I know was on Thursday, but while the moon is in Leo, it's in the opposite sign to the sun, and so through Saturday you're still feeling a little bit under pressure, a feeling that maybe the world is a bit kind of against you. There's a sort of it's you and the rest of the world, and there's an opposition there. There's something that's difficult to deal with, and you may feel on Saturday that you can't fully express yourself. Of course, it depends where you are. The moon changes sign, moves out of Leo late Saturday morning in Los Angeles, or early afternoon in New York, or early evening on Saturday if you're in London. But tomorrow or Sunday, Sunday if you're in Australia, New Zealand, East Asia. So it kind of does depend where you are. But when the moon moves out of Leo, moves into Virgo, there will be a moment of tension, but because the moment the moon moves into Virgo, it starts making an opposition to Saturn, and so that's at first sight you may feel that things aren't getting better, that there are limitations on you, but the moon is doing other things, and on Sunday you've got a grand trine, because the moon is making a trine to Venus, and it's making a trine to Jupiter. So the moon trining Venus and trining Jupiter is going to be I would have said pretty fortunate for you. Just let it flow. Don't allow anyone else to spoil the flow. So let me explain what that means. I kind of forgot to say when I was talking about this, what's going on for the world in general. I forgot to say that actually we have got this configuration. I think it's called a kite. So it's not just that we've got a grand trine in Earth signs. We've also got an opposition between the moon and Saturn. So as the moon makes a fortunate aspect to Jupiter, it also makes an opposition aspect to Saturn. And Saturn could represent someone who spoils the party. So on Saturday, things could go really well. You could get a lot of things done, provided someone doesn't wreck things. Who is that person who might wreck things? Maybe there's someone you need to avoid, someone who could just cause too much damage. Maybe it's a situation. And so you do need to consider that. Yeah, Sunday can be a good day, but you do have to handle things correctly, and you have to kind of think ahead about what might go wrong. I should also say, in terms of relationships, with the moon opposition Saturn on Sunday, it seems that there may be certain people in your life who you really don't see eye to eye on. Maybe in general your relationship is fine, but this weekend there is a clash. You have one view of the world, they have another view of the world, and if you try to discuss it or try to come to a compromise, you're not going to get anywhere, and the problem could be worse than ever. So Cancer, in terms of relationships, whatever the relationship is, if you have had recent disagreements with someone, then this weekend maybe you should just stay out of their way. On the other hand, if it's a mature relationship where you accept each other's differences of opinion, then it's different. Maybe you can have sort of a useful discussion. Maybe with Moon making a trine to Venus, Moon trine Venus is on Sunday is very good for relationships. It's also lucky. So it depends on the relationship. And so Cancer, in terms of how much emphasis, particularly on Sunday, you give to one-to-one contacts, how much effort, time and space you give to another person, you do have to use your judgment here. You have to consider what the past is. You've got to consider, is this person mature and reasonable? Can you deal with differences of opinion? So in a way, it's down to you how you handle the situation. But just bear in mind that the wrong person could wreck your weekend. But that's not going to happen because I think you have the emotional maturity to know which people you need to have in your life over the weekend and which people you need to be staying away from. Leo, on Saturday, the moon continues moving through your star sign. But, that does depend where you are. If you're in the Americas, then the moon will be out of your star sign by Saturday afternoon. If you're in Australia, the sun will be in your star sign right through until Sunday morning. So it kind of depends where you are. But in general, on Saturday, maybe there are just things you need to wrap up, things you started a few days ago, which have sort of moved on, have seeped into the weekend. It's a bit annoying, but you nonetheless have to deal with it. I should also say that on Saturday, the sun does, particularly early on Saturday, it depends where you are, the sun, which is your ruler, which is in Aquarius, is square Jupiter. This square between the sun and Jupiter could represent a situation where where there's a bit of a deadlock. You're trying to sort something out, possibly trying to sort something out with the help of another person, and it just doesn't seem to be going anywhere, and it might be really difficult to make progress. Perhaps you want one set of things, maybe relating to your key core ambitions. Another person wants something else, and you find that you may be temporarily disadvantaged. You may feel that you're on someone else's territory. Sun in Aquarius. Sun is your ruling planet, but it's in Aquarius. Not actually the best place for the sun in a broad sense. So you may feel yourself disadvantaged. So you have to ask yourself how actually you're going to deal with the issue. It may be that you just need to move away from it. There appears to be a deadlock situation, but actually when you walk away from the situation, it might just dissipate of its own accord. But if you stay with it, you're just creating a problem out of nowhere. It's a problem that really is improving if you just ignored it. So it may be that kind of thing, but avoid excessive behaviour. Particularly on Saturday, and also there may be a certain sense of feeling that things aren't moving fast enough. You might feel, Leo, that there's a certain sense of decay somewhere. Because you're not moving, and you wanted to, there's something that you look at it and you're thinking, hold on, that was there yesterday, that was there last week, that was perhaps there last month, last year, and it hasn't gone away. Maybe you're feeling it's a bit rotten, and that may concern you. And so how do you deal with it? Well, you may take the decision that now is the time to get rid of it. Uh, something that's been around for too long, and you take the view, well, now's the time. You're going to get rid of it. You're going to just, if it's a physical object, just pick it up and throw it away, or just clear it up. Or if it's a situation, sort it out. If something is starting to rot, then yes, then now would certainly be the time to start addressing it. Um, so as far as what what your focus should be, I think that as you move from Saturday to Sunday, I think many Leos could benefit by considering material stuff. I mean, after all, the moon is moving into Virgo. It's moving out of your star sign into Virgo. Virgo is an earth sign. So maybe this is time to think not just about yourself, but what you own and what you don't own and what you'd like to own. And so maybe you can ask yourself how you're going to get what you want. If you don't own something, what steps would you need to take in order to own it? And very likely there's a financial dimension there. So what would you have to do to, for example, increase your earning power or to reduce expenditure? And Moon in Virgo may give you some hints. It may start with a sort of a bad realization, saying, oh, this is no good. And then having had a bad realization, you can start to work out how you deal with it. It's not a question of panicking or anything. And things can actually move quite quickly and quite favorably. And by Sunday, the moon in Virgo is, it's starting to make a fortunate aspect to Jupiter, and Jupiter is certainly in the Leo chart. Jupiter's in Taurus. It's all about business. It's all about work. I know it's a Sunday, but you could get some useful insights there. So I think that could be very helpful. So I know Leo, you do have a certain sense of the dramatic, but what you should be trying to do this weekend, in fact, what probably most people should be trying to do, is come down to earth, with the moon moving out of your star sign, moving into Virgo, making this trine to Jupiter. So Sunday, if you ground yourself, I think you're going to you're going to feel a sense of quiet satisfaction. But you can't please everyone, and it may be that in your attempts to ground yourself and to sort of sort out what needs to be done, you might have to deal with other people, and not everyone is going to be constructive, or it might feel that someone's not being particularly constructive, and that might annoy you. But maybe you need to be told that there is another way of doing things. So if you've got an idea about the way things should be done, maybe you should listen to another person's view. That view could be useful. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of working with other people, and don't be put off by initial disagreement, because disagreement may be something dynamic, because a disagreement is about one person saying something, another person saying something, and you sort of have to sort it out, and you may have a chance there to come to some kind of compromise. Virgo. I think Virgo, it could be a very constructive weekend for you. there is a lot going on. Uh, for example, Virgo, Mercury is your ruling planet, and Mercury is making a conjunction with Mars. Um, so Mercury conjunct Mars means that you've got a lot of energy, um, and you're able to put this energy into something very constructive, very creative, and yes, Virgo, you can really make things happen. So Virgo, it's just important that you don't underestimate yourself. So as you start the weekend on Saturday, you might sort of be feeling, well, what can you do? What's the point? It's just another weekend. But um, first impressions can be misleading, and as the weekend develops, you're going to be able to start to see what you can do. And, when the moon moves into Virgo, it depends where you are. As I've told other people, if you're in the United States, the moon moves into Virgo afternoon or evening. Sorry, if you're let's get that right. If you're in the United States, in fact, on Saturday morning, if you're in the West Coast, 11 in the morning. If you're in Los Angeles or Seattle, Washington, or Portland, Oregon. If you're in New York, it will be 2:11 in the afternoon. If you're in Australia, the moon doesn't go into Virgo until Sunday, so it kind of depends where you are. But with this movement of the moon into Virgo, it's the moon is in your star sign. You can you understand what's going on. And as soon as the moon moves into Virgo, it makes wonderful aspects to Venus and to Jupiter, and so you can really start to get things moving. And so you mustn't doubt yourself. That can happen with Virgos. Virgos can doubt themselves. They can have questions about whether it's the right thing to do. They can be over analytical, and that can spoil the magic. But that's not what not what you should be doing. But as far as relationships are concerned, I suppose I have to point out that this weekend there is an opposition between the Moon and Saturn across the main axis of your solar chart. Or if you're looking at your chart from the point of view of your ascendant, if you're Virgo rising and you're not looking at your sun sign, but you're doing my forecast from the perspective of the ascendant. Then the moon would be in the first house, Saturn would be in your seventh house. So depending on how you're approaching my star sign forecast, how you're looking at the sign forecast, but moon opposition Saturn represents a conflict across the main axis of your chart, and it may be a situation where you find that one other person is really holding you up. You see this other person. Perhaps this person has been fine in the past, but like this weekend, they are being difficult. And so how do you respond to the situation? Do you get angry? Do you create a scene? Do you ignore them? Whatever. Or perhaps you just wait it out. This is Moon opposition Saturn. The Moon is quite a fast planet, and so the Moon, the exact Moon Saturn opposition is not going to last long. Okay, the Moon will still be on Sunday be in different signs. The Moon will be in Virgo, Saturn in Pisces. So in a general sense, you and someone else are not going to completely get on, but the actual moment of intensity when you really clash is actually going to be quite brief. So it might be just a good idea to just wait it out, and you certainly don't want to be in a situation where you allow someone to spoil your day. But Virgo is an earth sign, and Sunday does see a grand trine in Earth signs, because you've got Moon is going to be in Virgo. It's going to be making a trine to Jupiter in Taurus, another Earth sign, and the Moon is going to be making a trine to Venus in Capricorn, another Earth sign. And in fact, Venus and Jupiter are going to make a trine in turn. So there's a lot of energy flying around, and it's going to affect your sign, I think, in a beneficial way. So Virgo, I think you're going to be able to really bring things together by the end of the weekend, if you give yourself a chance. Yeah, a lot of energy, but I think you are going to be able to focus it. Now, it may be, I talked about this Moon opposition Saturn as being a problem, but it may be, it may actually be a bonus in your life, because there is this astrological configuration going on called a kite. So that's when you've got two planets are opposition each other. So there's your Moon opposition Saturn, and that planet is making a grand trine to two other planets. So you've got three trines in an opposition, and so that Saturn maybe there's an argument you have to have. There's a disagreement you have to have. There's a conflict you need to have, and it may be that this conflict, Virgo, moves you forward. It's dynamic. May feel painful to begin with, but if you can really go with it, this clash, this conflict may actually have a beneficial result, and may actually mean that the weekend really is great, that you really are able to sort something out in a big way. So if you handle things correctly, Virgo, I think it can be a great weekend. Libra. I'm quite optimistic about this weekend. I mean, you might feel that you're not really in the mood for much as you move into the weekend. You might feel that things are coming to an end. That not a great deal is happening, and perhaps your part of you is almost waiting for Monday. But Libra, your ruling planet is Venus, and Venus is actually in quite a good condition because Venus is starting to make a fortunate aspect to Jupiter. Now, this trine between Venus and Jupiter, it's actually exact Sunday evening, Monday, depends where you are exactly, but it's not just about exactitude. This Venus-Jupiter trine is building up over the weekend. So Venus is your ruler. If it's trine Jupiter, Jupiter's a planet of good luck. So as the weekend progresses, I think that you are becoming more and more sort of fortunate, and I don't think you have to try too hard. You have to just allow events to take their course, because it's a trine. Trines is an easy aspect. It's not like a square. So Venus trine Jupiter, just let things take their course. You probably don't have to do anything. Just be where you are comfortable. Wherever that might be, and allow something to develop. This something may on the surface be quite complicated, be quite hidden, but it is actually working in your favor. And I think that by Sunday it will really start to be clear what it is. So yeah, just let the weekend happen. Okay, within reason. If you see some disaster on the horizon, then it does happen. Then okay, you have to take evasive action. But in most cases, it's just let the weekend develop at its own pace, and there's no need to have expectations, because the weekend is moving in a fortunate direction for you, and it's not even going to be dramatic. It's just going to happen. So in that sense. I think you can just relax. But I'm not saying that there aren't a few ripples. So if we're looking for ripples, if we're looking for things that might be slightly disturbing, might provide a bit of dynamic tension. First point to make is that there is a conjunction between Mercury and Mars this weekend. Mars is the ruler of your opposite sign of Aries. So if you're having contacts with any other person, on a one-to-one level, face-to-face, this other person may have a lot to say. They may be sparking with ideas, and that's great. But you might feel that it's all too much. You might sort of back off. Why is this person talking so much? Why, someone who's got lots of ideas may be dangerous. But I repeat what I said at the beginning of this reading, for you. Just let things develop. Just because someone is talking a lot, just because someone has got lots of ideas, is appearing to want attention, doesn't mean that you have to allow this person to just mess your life up. Just let them do what they have to do. They might be close to you, but I suspect that they're not. What they're going to do is probably not going to affect you. And maybe you should just listen, see what someone else has got to say. If a partner seems crazily active, maybe it's just a question of humouring them. I don't think they're going to, as I said, I don't think it's going to bother you, but it just might feel a bit disturbing, particularly if they have ideas about what they want to do next. Just because someone's got an idea doesn't mean they're actually going to follow through on it. Another thing might be the fact that Venus, which is your ruling planet, is square the Jupiter-Saturn midpoint. So over the last few weeks, a number of planets have been on the Jupiter-Saturn midpoint, and it's Venus's turn to be on the Jupiter-Saturn midpoint. So Jupiter-Saturn is the principle of stop and go. Jupiter is optimistic, thinking about the future. Saturn is more concerned about what can go wrong. There's a certain sense of pessimism there. So with Venus on a Jupiter-Saturn midpoint, it could just give us sort of stop-go feel. And Jupiter and Saturn are social planets, and that means that together they are about the wider world. They're about society. They're about the economy. And Libra, you may be thinking about the economy and how it might impact you. You may be thinking about what's going on in the world and how it might impact you. Perhaps you're reading the news, or you're watching YouTube videos, live YouTube news channels or whatever, and they're giving you a view of the world, and it might feel a bit disturbing. You might feel that it's all falling apart, but it is the world at large. You shouldn't worry about it on a personal level. It's just the way it is. That's the world in which you're born. That's the world in which we're all born. So Libra, don't take it personally. Although, from an economic point of view, it's probably a good idea for Librans to just spend a little time thinking about the economy, because it's likely to affect you sooner or later. It'll affect all of us. But by thinking about the economy, you can perhaps think about ways in which you can make your world and your life a little bit safer, because in the end, economic cycles do affect us, and so perhaps you can start thinking about ways of protecting yourself. In terms of relationships, I've already talked about this Mercury-Mars conjunction. So in one sense, you could just see it as like being about what someone else having ideas, being very obvious, being right in front of you, being very clear that you can't really avoid them, but you can keep a bit of distance. I mean, I don't think that they're going to have a big impact on you, but I think the fact that Mars is hitting your nodal axis, and I think you're perhaps in a situation where someone else's dynamism is the way forward. Maybe you need to accept the instability that another person appears to create. So someone else's dynamic view of the world can move you forward. And so do consider that when dealing with your various relationships. If someone has a lot of ideas and they're very assertive about these ideas, and they want things to happen in a particular way, sure, you can sort of moderate them a bit, but in a way you are being encouraged by someone else to be yourself, and so do consider that possibility. You may be being moved in a particular direction, which may actually be quite fortunate, although it could be challenging. So just because someone is off-putting doesn't mean they don't have your best interests at heart. Scorpio. Well, Scorpio, you have a lot to say. And I've been mentioning this, over the last few days as Mercury has been moving towards a conjunction with Mars, your star sign, and with Mercury moving to a conjunction with Mars, your ruling planet, because Mars rules Scorpio. It's not Pluto, by the way. Pluto doesn't rule anything. Mars is a ruler of Scorpio, and so. This weekend there is an exact conjunction between Mercury and Mars. So Mercury has arrived. The Mercury principle is really important to you this weekend. Mercury is about your intellect. Your intellect is on fine form. And I think that your life is made better by what you are thinking about. So give your intellect free rein. Do whatever is needed to stimulate your intellect. New knowledge is also going to be important. Perhaps you should do some reading, some studying. Maybe you should just read a book. Or I suppose you can study on the internet, but it's very focused. Make sure you take it in. There are things you need to learn about. You can benefit from them. So that's one way how Mercury might be working. Mercury, of course, is about talking. So if you've got something to say, now is certainly the time to say it, because your verbal performance this weekend, I think, is going to be excellent, 10 out of 10. So Scorpio, don't hold back. You're going to be impressive, and you're not going to make a fool of yourself, because this Mercury-Mars conjunction is in Capricorn. Capricorn gets everything in the right order, gets the facts in the right order. It's not like when Mercury is in Sagittarius, where things go everywhere. Mercury-Mars conjunction. This is in Capricorn, and so you can explain yourself very well. So, if you have been meaning to explain yourself, if you've been meaning to talk to someone, if you've been meaning to broach a difficult subject, then I'm thinking that maybe this weekend is as good as it gets. So don't hold back. But don't blame me if something goes wrong. Of course, I have to say that, don't I? You've got to use your judgment. But yeah, don't hold back. Now's your time. Now is the time to express whatever needs to be expressed. Or should I say, speak now or forever hold your peace. So that I think is a major theme of this weekend, and that probably means that you do need to be in places where other people also frequent. So I would probably put quite a lot of emphasis on your social life. I think your social life could be very satisfying. And I think there are plenty of things, plenty of people to meet, people who will find you very impressive. So if you're invited to a party over the weekend, then I would suggest that you go. Try not to spend a weekend alone. Try to meet. Well, okay. I'm not saying you have to meet new people, but meet people who you can have powerful interactions with, people who are going to appreciate what you've got to say, because you've got a lot of really important things to say. I'm very optimistic about that. And now Mars is square the nodal axis. So the nodal axis represents all the networks of people around you. It may be that in expressing your true feelings that a couple of people are upset. But that's too bad. That's nothing to worry about. If some people can't handle what you've got to say, then that's their problem and not yours. That's certainly looks good. In terms of relationships, I'm thinking it might not be a good idea to spend all weekend focusing on just one person. You might be too much. You might be too much to handle. Plus, it may be a waste of time, or it may be a misuse of your time. I think ideally you should be sort of moving from person to person, having a sort of wide range of people who you're in contact with. I would say, avoid spending too much time with one person. But it's important if there are important people in your life, do appreciate them. Because in the Scorpio horoscope, Taurus is your opposite sign. Venus rules Taurus. Venus, which is a sort of representative of partners. Regardless, and I know Venus is a female planet, but Venus is still a general significator of partners, whether you're male or female. Venus is moving towards a trine to Jupiter, and that's a very fortunate aspect, this Venus trine Jupiter. So I think with that Venus trine Jupiter, there is one person in your life who is really developing and is really starting to move on, is able to be generous, is able to be mature, is able to be reasonable. And you do need to pay that person respect, and you need to consider them, and you need to be there for them. But again, you don't necessarily have to. But it doesn't mean you have to spend all your time with them, because as I said, you might just be a little bit overwhelming. Sagittarius, it's if you've been listening to what I've been saying for all the signs in general, I have been pretty optimistic about most signs. I think it's quite a strong. It's quite a powerful weekend, and you are no exception. You're able to really project yourself well onto the world around you. I think particularly on Sunday, I'm thinking that maybe Sunday is going to be a more interesting day than Saturday. But I think you kind of know how to project yourself. I mean, I think that I think you understand that there is a right way to appear in public and there's a wrong way to appear in public. And today, I think this weekend you give it some thought and you work out, well, what's the best way to communicate? What is the best way to dress? How do you want people to see you? And I think you're going to give that question a lot of thought, and you will make a decision, and that conscious decision could be very effective. Now, not everyone is going to appreciate the way you come across, but really, Sagittarius, I don't think that can be helped. You can't please everyone, and I think as a Sagittarius, you perhaps of all the 12 signs understand that. You've just got to be yourself in all your glory. And by presenting yourself in the right way, and that's not a crazy way, by the way. That is quite a serious way. There is a seriousness to the way you're presenting yourself, because you get what you put out. If you put out a serious image, you get back serious feedback, and so by taking the world seriously, the world takes you seriously. And I think that especially on Sunday, you're going to find that things start happening. I think Sunday, in some ways, is the beginning of the week. Now, I know there's this big argument about what is the first day of a week. Is it Monday or is it Sunday? I mean, logically, it's Monday. It's the first day of a week. But in a way, for you, Sagittarius, I think this week, at least, Sunday is the first day of a week. Sunday is how the week is going to start. The week starts on Sunday, so that's a good for you. It starts on Sunday. Maybe for other people it starts on Monday, but for you, so your week starting on Sunday, it's going to be effective. You're going to know how to behave, and I think that you can get on extremely well with anyone you're meeting on Sunday, but in a way that's not very Sagittarian. It's not very spectacular. It's just because you know how to behave, and if there's anything that needs to be discussed, it'll all be done properly. It'll all be done by the book. And in fact, it's your seriousness that is really going to help you out. And in the process, you must be ready to listen to what people have to say, because some people have got a lot to say, and what they've got to say is going to be very focused. It's going to be spoken with great passion, and you need to listen and take it all on board. Because in the end, I think that you can benefit from it. And in terms of relationships, whatever the relationship, I think relationships are just going to get better as the weekend progresses. And right at the end of a weekend, there is a fantastic aspect between Venus and Jupiter. Remember, Jupiter's your ruling planet. Venus is the universal significator of relationships. So you've got Venus trine Jupiter. So there's at least one relationship that can really develop. You and someone else will just know exactly how to communicate. Again, it's not necessarily spectacular. You may be communicating about something really on the surface quite boring, about how to set up an Excel spreadsheet. It doesn't matter what you're talking about. Communication is going to be good. And well, however trivial the communication or mundane the communication appears to be, it's going to be the right communication, and it will demonstrate, and it will bring about sort of great sort of bonds of trust. So I think there's a lot to look forward to this weekend. Capricorn. So this weekend there is a grand trine in Earth signs. So Capricorn, you're an Earth sign, and so this grand trine, which is exact on Sunday, it happens when you've got these triangular aspects, 120 degrees aspect between two planets. So the moon in Virgo is trine Jupiter in Taurus, and the moon in Virgo is also trine Venus in Capricorn, and Venus in Capricorn is applying to a trine of Jupiter in Taurus. Hence you've got a grand trine in Earth signs. And I think for you, Capricorn, I think this is going to really be very useful. I think that things are going to move very well for you. Now, that might not seem to be the case as you start the weekend. As you start the weekend, you might be thinking, this is just not working. You're just feeling, you're feeling perhaps a little negative about the whole thing. But it's, but it's a passing trend. I mean, what you don't want to do is have this passing negativity on Saturday and just stay with it and just refuse to look up and see what's going on in the rest of the world. So get through that passing negativity on Saturday, and then you enter sort of a whole new world. This grand trine in Earth signs, things really move at whatever level you want them to move. Though, please don't spoil it. I mean, I think there is some danger that Capricorn spoils the luck. Reason being is because, yes, there is this grand trine in Earth signs, but Saturn is involved with this grand trine. Saturn is making a sextile to Venus. Saturn is almost actually making a sextile to Jupiter. It's quite it's not exact sextile. And Saturn, the moon, actually makes an opposition to Saturn. So there is some danger that this weekend you've got something that is really amazing. Maybe other people are involved with it. And your negativity spoils the whole thing. Or you just miss a chance. That is a danger this weekend. But it needn't happen. It's completely unnecessary. So just be aware of that possibility. And you've got to be positive, you've got to be optimistic. Sure, you've got to give people constructive criticism, but not to the point of destroying something. So if you can understand that and recognize that danger, then I think it could be an excellent weekend. And you've got on Sunday you've got Venus is making a sextile to Saturn. Obviously Saturn is your ruling planet. Venus is a planet of money. It's a planet of relationships. So you can have a very, very constructive contacts with another person. And I think ideally what was going to happen this weekend is that your whole way of looking at the world needs to change or can change, but in a completely positive way when you move beyond the intrinsic negativity to your star sign. And again, I don't mean negative in a negative sense, but just sort of that cautiousness of your star sign. And there's nothing wrong with being cautious, that's good. But if you can move beyond it, I think you start seeing a world that can be really good if you can just allow it all to happen. So looking in terms of relationships, I mean, you probably shouldn't have fixed ideas about what is right and wrong, what should be done, what should not be done. Give the other person, give partners a bit of room. Let them have ideas. Let them take the initiative. Let them make suggestions. Don't just automatically shoot their suggestions down. Just see where it all leads. And it's also, I think, important, whatever you're doing this weekend, to have a sense of adventure. Aquarius. For many of I've been quite positive this weekend about all the signs, pretty much. For Aquarius, though, I'm not. It's not that I'm going to be negative. I think that this weekend you may be slightly at odds with the rest of the world. You're seeing things, I think, that other people don't see, and I think you do have a natural caution this weekend. You can see that there's a lot of activity. You can see that a lot of people are sort of taking advantage of the energy and are doing fun things. But I'm not convinced that you necessarily want to participate. I mean, it's kind of a situation like, I don't know, if everyone's going to a party where alcohol is being drunk, I mean this symbolically, metaphorically, whatever, someone's got to drive everyone home, and that person driving everyone home is you. You're the one who can step back and sort of look at things in a more objective way. You can see, you can see people's excitement, but you can also see the problems. And maybe if anyone is going to bring anyone else down to earth, maybe that person is you. Now, I am absolutely not saying it's a bad weekend. I think it can be actually a very useful weekend. For example, on Sunday we've got Venus. The planet Venus is making a sextile aspect to Saturn. Saturn is your ruling planet. Relationships can be sort of stabilized, and I think you're in a position to give people good advice. You can bring people down to earth, but in a sort of a gentle way. You can explain to them the advantages and disadvantages of particular actions, and you can also be a restraining influence. So you can make sure that the people around you aren't going to go completely crazy. And I think Aquarius, you're going to see that things have implications, particularly in a financial sense. So if anyone's got big ideas, you'll pretty immediately know what it's going to cost. Even like if a sum of money comes into your mind, it may actually be the right sum of money. Someone has an idea and you say, you know what, it's going to cost you this. It's going to cost you $575.46. Okay, I'm not saying you're going to be that accurate, but you're going to have a good sense about what things are going to cost, and not just in a financial sense. You can see cost in an emotional sense, in a social sense. In terms of everyone's actions, you know what it's going to cost, and I think you're going to be able to explain to people what things are going to cost, and you're going to be able to explain to people what the benefits of actions are and what the risks are. And this is your role. Everyone has that role. Someone has, as I said, someone has to drive everyone home after the party, and I think that's going to be you. And so, if you ask me how a relationship's going to be to this weekend, Well, as just said, Venus is sextile Saturn. You can't. It's got to be good for relationships with Venus sextile Saturn, because I think people are going to trust you. You've got good advice to give, and by giving advice, by being sensible, you can improve relationships. Are relationships going to be wild and exciting? Probably not. So, I'm sorry, Aquarius, to be downbeat, and you may feel hard done by, because I've been quite positive about all the other signs. But remember, I'm not being negative. I'm just telling you, Aquarius, perhaps what your role this weekend is going to be, or what your role should be if you want to make the most of all the opportunities before you. Pisces, it looks like being a great weekend. Jupiter is your ruling planet. It's well placed. Over the course of a weekend, Venus is moving towards a trine of Jupiter. This trine is actually exact on Monday, depending where you are. It's going to be exact on Sunday evening if you're in the Americas, so it depends on that. But Venus is not just the planet of relationships and perhaps money. Venus is also the lesser benefic. Jupiter, your ruler, is the greater benefic. Venus is the lesser benefic. And so with this trine between Venus and Jupiter, there is you're going to feel that things that are really moving this weekend. In that sense, I'm thinking it's going to be very fortunate. I mean, that doesn't mean to say that you can't provide some structure every now and then. Things might move too far at times, but you'll know how to bring things back to line. After all, Saturn, the planet of responsibility, is moving through your star sign. So if people are being too crazy, you'll know what it takes to bring them back into line. Though you must be prepared to listen over the weekend, because I think that someone has got something important to say, and they may speak with great intensity. I think you should understand that. Do listen to what people say. They may be talking nonsense, but you still have to listen, because you've got to provide some feedback. And maybe someone needs to be brought down to earth. So that may be one thing going on that Pisces does have to consider. I think this weekend it's important that you meet people. I mean, after all, Venus is trine Jupiter. If don't just meet one person. If you can go out, social gatherings, that's all going to work. That's all going to work very well. Don't be too negative. There is an opposition aspect between Moon and Saturn, which could have an impact on relationships. In certain situations, you might act in a way that cramps someone's style. Someone wants to be themselves, wants to express themselves, and somehow you might act in a way that just is like a bucket of cold water. Don't do that. It's unnecessary. Because Saturn's in Pisces, Saturn is in a water sign. Yeah, I'm sure you're able to act like, I don't know whether it's cold water, but just maybe it's just a bucket of warm mud. I don't know, but you don't want to do that. So give people a chance to express themselves. But overall, overall it's a great weekend. I think, and it's just but I said, with relationships, yes, it's true that Venus is making a trine to Jupiter, but at the same time, I think if you want to make the most of relationships. As I said, you do have to understand that some of the people around you do have a lot of energy, and they might have particular grievances. It may be something that's bothering them. There's something they want to complain about. You need to listen to them. You need to listen to their complaints, and listen to their anger. Don't be afraid of angry people. Okay, within reason. If someone is angry and dangerous, then sure, be afraid of them. But if someone is just angry in a verbal sense, just try to understand their anger, and perhaps you can do something to bring them down to earth. After all, Saturn is moving through your star sign. Venus is sextile Saturn. So yeah, you can certainly bring people down to earth. So yeah, overall, it's a good weekend. And you've just got to make sure that you allow everyone to express themselves, and you don't inadvertently close someone down and cause offence. So that's it. Okay, so those are my forecasts for the 12 signs. And what I'm going to do now is look at the I Ching. So, as always, I ask the question, what is this weekend going to be like for those watching the I Ching segment of this video? So I threw 3 coins 6 times, and the first hexagram I got was retreat. This hexagram probably relates more to Saturday. Retreat is what it is. I mean, we're in a situation where it's perhaps not working, or we're in a situation where we haven't got enough strength to see it through. And because of that, we need to withdraw. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. If we can recognize it's not working, then obviously we should get out. And as we leave a situation, we're going to find that a lot of people are going to leave with us. And so there may be a bit of a contradiction here. We retreat because we're not in the right situation. But in a way, people want to retreat with us. It's a bit like maybe sort of going to a party, thinking we don't like the party, we don't like the people there. We decide that we want to get out of this party, and we tell people we're going to leave, and everyone else says, "Oh yeah, you're right, we're going to leave with you." So in a way, the people we want to retreat from also want to retreat with us. So that might represent a bit of a responsibility. So we may actually have to explain to other people why we need to retreat, and maybe it may be a social retreat, and in our retreating, we may have to adopt a position perhaps of leadership, this retreat takes on a different dimension as we move forward. It doesn't, because we have two lines moving. We have the second line from the bottom moving, and we have the fourth line from the bottom moving. In other words, the second line, you can see it's a broken line. It becomes unbroken, and then the fourth line, it starts as being unbroken, then it becomes broken. And this is a situation where we're ending in a situation where we don't have to leave, we don't have to give up on something, but we've made the decision. It's our decision, and those that don't want to retreat, don't want to retreat, well, it's up to them what happens. But overall, it is about retreat, but it's quite a complicated retreat. I don't think it's going to be straightforward, particularly if we're in a social situation and other people are involved in this project that we're trying to get out of, or whatever we're trying to do. Of course, it may be completely trivial. Maybe you're involved in a task, whatever it might be. Fixing something in the home, or something like that, or perhaps you're in a situation where the weather's bad and it's dangerous, and you retreat, something like that. Yeah, then it's simple, you just retreat. But where other people are concerned, retreat could be quite complicated. Now, this hexagram 33, it does move, and it moves to hexagram number 57, which is the gentle. Now, 57 is very much about the wind. You can see that the top three lines repeat. So it's, whatever we're doing, it's just important not to be too dramatic about it. We just have to accept the situation, and in certain situations we may actually have to do things another person's way. Now, that might sound demeaning, but we have to look at what people are saying, and someone may be saying something that makes a lot of sense. They may be in a position of authority. This is not about ego. The best way of dealing with this issue, we just come from retreat, and we're trying to make sense of the situation. The gentle is also about understanding what is wrong. We're trying to hunt down the evil. That's a lot of what it is, and it may be that the solution is to accept another person's way of looking at the world, because if you feel that someone has got it right, it's not about egos, it's about doing the right thing. So don't be afraid of accepting someone else's leadership, because it's only short term. It just might be the best way of dealing with the situation. So that's the I Ching. I would have said it's somewhat understated. I wouldn't worry about it too much. But if you are involved in something on Saturday that's not working out, then I think that maybe you should do the mature thing, which is just you stop what you're doing, and maybe this idea of 57 is the gentle is about perhaps accepting that someone else understands the situation better than you, and then accepting their leadership. Okay, so that's the I Ching, and what I want to do now is look at what happened in Alabama on Thursday. So we go back to the astrology. So top right, that is Kenneth Smith, who was executed. I suppose we should start off with his chart, and I'll be honest, I don't have a great I don't know his time of birth. I don't even know where he's born. I assume he's born in Alabama, so I've set this chart for Montgomery, Alabama, but it's a noon chart. I know he was born on July the 4th, 1965, July the 4th, born on America's birthday. So it's a very American story, isn't it? We don't know. We don't know what his moon sign is. At noon, his moon was at 29 Virgo. He could have a moon in Virgo. He could have a moon in Libra. One thing which is maybe a bit sort of tragic about this chart, is the fact that he's got an exact Mercury-Venus conjunction. Who knows if he, let's think what he did. I believe he was 22 years old. There was a preacher by the name of Charles Sennett who wanted to kill his wife. he hired some people to kill her. He paid them $1,000 each. I think that was the idea. And one of the people was this Kenneth Smith. He did this for $1,000. He was 22 years old. He got caught, and we know how it ended. And he was eventually executed at the age of 58. Who knows how his life would have developed? But that Mercury-Venus conjunction in a raw form is very talented. It's artistic, it's creative, it's communicative. He could perhaps do something special. Maybe the problem with that Venus-Mercury conjunction is it's in Leo. That might suggest perhaps a certain amount of arrogance. He thought he could do it. He thought he could, whatever it is, whatever his talents, he just thought he could get away with it and it would be fine. Maybe. But I don't have a time of birth, and obviously he's dead now. So I don't know what he was doing when he was in prison. I was looking at his last words and what he was saying about his death. He sounded quite eloquent in terms of understanding the issues about what would happen if this execution was put into practice. But I think he mentioned saying something like America is taking a step backwards. But I suppose one shouldn't forget that we shouldn't forget that he did kill someone, and there we have, he had, he was born in that mid-60s generation, Saturn opposition Pluto, square Jupiter, on a node, there are his nodes. But, it's just very difficult for me to really make sense of this chart on its own, because I don't really have much of a context. His sun, 12-13 Cancer, sextile Uranus and Pluto. I suppose Sun sextile Uranus, you could, it should be something fortunate, but I suppose you could say him doing this, him doing this killing, that could be Sun sextile Uranus. Also Mars semi-square. Perhaps what we should also be focusing on, remember we don't have his time of birth, he does have Mars semi-square Neptune. And we could read that in two ways, given what we know about him. Mars in Libra is how you put your energy, how you use your energy, how you use your aggression, your assertion. Neptune, you get confused. You get someone who is a preacher, this Charles Sennett. He's a man, an older man. He agrees to give you $1,000. And for the contract to kill someone. That's the Mars semi-square Neptune. Maybe he was deceived. Maybe he didn't really fully understand what he was getting involved in, and maybe the personality of this man, Charles Sennett, had some impact on him. So that would be Mars square Neptune. Of course, Mars square Neptune might also say something about his eventual death. Neptune is the planet of gas. And so Mars square Neptune, that may indicate how it all ended. Now, as far as his solar arc directions for when he committed the crime. So the crime, I think, happened on March the 18th, 1965. So March the 18th, 1965, you can see that he was born when he was born, Uranus was at 11 Virgo, Mars was at 2 Libra. So by solar arc direction, Uranus had come forward to his Mars. So his solar arc direction was around 319 Libra. So we don't know precisely when, because we don't know his time of birth. So his solar arc directed Uranus when he committed this murder on March the 18th, 1988, was pretty close to his Mars, and that might help explain why he did it when he did it. And one other thing about the murder, this is a chart of the crime. I don't know. I don't know. I think it happened in Colbert County, Alabama, but I don't know the time of the crime. I don't know. I've just gone for a noon chart. I just want to focus on one thing about this crime. March the 18th, 1988, when Elizabeth Sennett was murdered. Neptune, look at Neptune. Neptune is on the Mars-Saturn midpoint. Yeah, Mars-Saturn is the death axis. There's a death pair. Neptune is on there. Okay, so you could say, oh, well, confused death. But maybe that Neptune on the Mars-Saturn midpoint is a pointer to the future. And I'll be getting into that in a moment, or a few moments. But so that's the crime. And then we have to think about the execution. And I did actually look at the charts of a few executions, which are perhaps relevant. This, for example, this is a chart of August the 6th, 1890, in Auburn, New York. This is a chart of the moment when the man who was the first man to be executed on the electric chair walked into the room where the electric chair was. It was at 6:38 a.m. when he did it. So what is the sense of this is a new point of departure for America and its executions and its love affair with cruel and unusual punishment. Again, I'm not making any points about the rights or wrongs of the death penalty. But you can see that this chart has an exact, a fairly close Mars-Saturn square. Mars-Saturn is the death axis, so it kind of makes sense that you would have Mars square Saturn, and in terms of midpoints, there's the Sun, there's Mars, there's Uranus. So you can see that the Mars-Uranus midpoint is around 13 Scorpio. So at the time of the first electrocution in the electric chair, the Sun was square the Mars-Uranus midpoint. Mars and Uranus is electric, violence with electricity. Mars-Uranus, the Sun, I suppose you could think of a heart. I think the Sun on the Mars-Uranus midpoint is a perfect fit for the first electrocution. Another first, these are rather grisly firsts, is the first time that someone was executed in the gas chamber in Nevada. So this is the first execution in Carson City, Nevada, of someone by cyanide gas. According to Wikipedia, they were dead within they were unconscious in 5 seconds because they put 4 pounds of cyanide into the gas chamber. Or, I don't know about the details, but this was February the 8th, 1924, at 9:40 a.m. So it's kind of interesting that Kenneth Smith's death, the first time that they used this nitrogen method, is almost a century after the first time that someone was executed in the gas chamber in Nevada. You can see from this chart, okay, you've got Pluto on the IC here. Neptune, again, it's a gas here. An electrocution is more about Uranus, but a gas is going to be more about Neptune. And you can see that the Sun is very close to the opposition of Neptune. So the Sun is being snuffed up. The Sun is the life force of the person being executed, moving towards that opposition of Neptune. That kind of fits, to my mind, that fits quite well. Then we also have the new moon. So this February the 8th, 1924, was the February the 8th, 1924 was the date when this man was gassed. This is a new moon just before the event. So this is a new moon, February the 4th, 1924, set for Carson City, Nevada. And what's really interesting about this chart is that the ascendant at the time of this new moon, there's a new moon at 15, exactly 15 Aquarius, exactly on the Aries point, that the ascendant was 1901 Leo. The part of fortune was 1901 Leo, also by definition, that's what happens. But Neptune was at 1907 Leo. So Neptune was exactly on the ascendant in the new moon just before this first execution by cyanide. So 100 years later, we have Kenneth Smith's execution. So we actually have two events. This is when the gas started. And you can see that the ascendant is at 951 Virgo. The midheaven is at 822 Gemini. Notice that we've got Pluto just moving into Aquarius. That's Pluto in Aquarius for you. Pluto in Aquarius is all about technology. It's about the misuse of technology, how we use science, how we misuse science. You could say that he's been killed by messing around with the air mixture. So air, I believe, is, 78% nitrogen and 20% oxygen. Pluto moves into an air sign. So they kill someone by transforming the air that someone breathes, and plus the fact that you've got Pluto, new technology, and all this kind of thing. So the ascendant is so there's the ascendant at 9 Virgo, 9 Virgo, midheaven at 8 Virgo. But he wasn't declared dead. So this was at 7:57. 5 minutes later, he was gasping, all of this kind of stuff. He was declared dead at 8:25 p.m. So he was declared dead when the ascendant had moved from 9 Virgo to 1553 Virgo. In other words, when the ascendant was pretty much moving towards the sesquiquadrate of Pluto. So that's actually when it happened. Now, so that's part of what's going on with this execution. Now, I said that when the crime was committed, Neptune was on the Mars-Saturn midpoint. Okay, got that? So if we look at, here's the new moon. He was actually full moon. The execution happened on the day of a full moon. It happened about 8 or 9 hours after a full moon. So this is the full moon set for Atmore, Alabama. Firstly, we see Sun-Pluto conjunction on the midheaven at the time of a new moon. Uranus is on the ascendant. So something's happening here. And the moon is on the IC. There's something happening in the southeastern United States. That's the first point. Now, let's look at Neptune. Neptune is... now, let's look at Neptune's midpoint tree, because actually Neptune is on the ascendant midheaven midpoint. It's also there's Mars, there is Saturn. So Neptune is semi-square. It's semi-square the Mars-Saturn midpoint. So the crime happened with Neptune on the Mars-Saturn midpoint. And Kenneth Smith was eventually killed for this crime 35, 36 years later, and Neptune is on the Mars-Saturn midpoint. So, what let's just look at the dial for that new moon, which is just 8. This is 8 hours before the actual execution. There's Neptune. You see, there's that Mercury-Mars conjunction, and there's Saturn. So Neptune is on the Mars-Saturn midpoint, and there's Neptune is on the ascendant mid-heaven midpoint. So that was at the time of the full moon. That was what was brought down to Earth and what was affecting the southeastern United States. And then, so at the actual time of the execution, we've got Neptune. We've got Neptune semi-square the Mars-Saturn midpoint. So that Neptune on the Mars-Saturn midpoint is about death by gas. I will just read you what Vita says rules for planetary pictures. So we look up Neptune on the Mars-Saturn midpoint. It's very simple. Neptune on the Mars-Saturn midpoint. Death by poison, gas, plague, or cunning. I think that's kind of straightforward. While I regret this execution, certainly regret the method of the execution, from an astrological point of view, it does kind of show that the astrology is kind of working, isn't it? And it also shows you that really we should be using midpoints. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say about Kenneth Smith and this execution. It is a new method of execution, and I think, that Neptune on the semi-square the Mars-Saturn midpoint is kind of obvious, isn't it? It's kind of what you would it was kind of what you'd expect. Okay, well, as usual, I've gone on for far too long. But if you've enjoyed this video, would you have really enjoyed this video? So the theme I know is a bit grisly, but if you found the video useful or interesting, I would be grateful if you liked it. If you're not subscribed and you found the video useful, I'd be very grateful if you were to subscribe. And if you want to buy me a coffee, there is a link in the description. Thank you again for listening, and I will talk to you again very soon.